The courtroom was packed. Dozens of people sat shoulder to shoulder, some nervously waiting for their turn before the judge, others just watching for drama. The air buzzed with tension. Court officers moved around, checking files, whispering updates, but all eyes kept drifting toward the man sitting on the witness stand. Detective Ray Donovan, mid-40s, white, confident, sat upright in his police uniform, flashing smug smiles at familiar faces in the room. He wasn't just any officer. For years, Ray had built a reputation as a no-nonsense cop, someone who got things done, even if it meant stepping on people's rights. He knew the system well, too well, and he believed the system would always protect him. A few feet away, sitting silently in the front row, was a black woman. She looked calm, collected, and out of place, too composed for the nervous energy around her. She wore a simple black suit, no fancy jewelry, and held a thick folder on her lap. She hadn't said a word since the court session began. As Ray spoke on the stand, answering questions about a recent arrest, his words were smooth but carefully rehearsed. He twisted facts, left out details, and played up his version of the story. It was clear he was trying to cover something up, but no one in the courtroom seemed to notice. Or maybe they just didn't care. That's when the woman quietly stood up. Her voice was calm but steady. "Your Honor, with all due respect, that statement is not legally accurate." The room went still. Everyone turned to look. Ray blinked in surprise, then narrowed his eyes. "Excuse me, and who exactly are you?" he said, loud enough for the room to hear. A few chuckles spread through the gallery. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she took a step forward, holding the folder. Ray smirked. "Oh, I see. Another activist trying to play lawyer? Lady, this is a courtroom, not a protest." The laughter grew louder. Even the judge gave a small smile before clearing his throat. "Detective Donovan, let's keep it respectful." Ray leaned back, still smirking. "Just saying, Judge. People think they can walk in here and lecture professionals." But the woman didn't flinch. She simply walked up to the judge's bench and handed over the folder without saying a word. The judge looked confused, then opened the folder. His expression changed almost instantly. The laughter died. A long pause followed. The judge adjusted his glasses and stared hard at Ray. "Detective Donovan, I need you to remain seated. We are now entering a formal misconduct hearing, effective immediately." Ray's face dropped. The room froze. The woman, still calm, finally spoke. "Thank you, Your Honor. I'm ready to present the case." Nobody laughed now. Her name was Aisha Carter. She wasn't just someone walking in off the street. She wasn't a protester. She wasn't an angry bystander. She was a licensed attorney. And not just any attorney, she was the state's special prosecutor, assigned to investigate cases of police misconduct. At 38 years old, Aisha had spent her entire life fighting to be heard in rooms just like this one. She had grown up in the city's poorest neighborhood, raised by her mother, a woman who worked night shifts cleaning courtrooms, this very one, in fact. As a child, Aisha would sit outside, waiting for her mother to finish work, watching judges, lawyers, and officers walk in and out, all wearing confidence like armor. She never forgot how invisible she felt in those moments. But everything changed the day her older brother was arrested. He was the 16th innocent, but he was dragged out of their home, beaten, and thrown into jail without explanation. No apology ever came. No justice was ever served. That pain stayed with Aisha and shaped her purpose. She pushed herself through school with scholarships and part-time jobs. She studied harder than everyone else, not because she wanted to win, but because she wanted to change the game entirely. She earned her law degree with top honors and quickly made a name for herself as someone who took on impossible cases, ones that no one else dared to touch. Aisha didn't seek fame. She wasn't interested in headlines. What she wanted was accountability. And more than that, she wanted dignity for people like her brother, people who were forgotten by the system. That's how she ended up here today. For months, she had been working quietly, building a case against a group of officers who thought they were untouchable. Detective Ray Donovan was one of them. His name had appeared in multiple complaints over the years, claims of excessive force, racial slurs, tampered reports. Yet every time the system protected him, the cases were closed, the victims were ignored. But not this time. This time, Aisha had been given authority to investigate with full access to sealed records, witness testimony, and internal department files. And she used every ounce of that power carefully, collecting evidence, connecting the dots, preparing for the right moment to act. And that moment was now. She had purposely stayed silent in that courtroom until Ray revealed his arrogance in front of everyone. She wanted the world to see who he really was, not just behind closed doors, but under the bright lights of public justice. She wasn't here to prove herself. She wasn't here to argue. She was here to reveal the truth and let the law speak for itself. The courtroom was still quiet after the judge's unexpected announcement. No one quite understood what had just happened. One moment, Detective Ray Donovan was confidently testifying, mocking a woman he believed had no power, and the next, he was the one being investigated. Ray shifted in his seat. For the first time that day, his smirk faded. He looked at the judge, then back at the woman he had insulted just moments earlier. Aisha stepped forward calmly. "Your Honor, as lead prosecutor in the Internal Affairs investigation, I'm submitting evidence under seal, along with a request for immediate protective custody of key witnesses." Ray's mouth opened slightly, as if to speak, but no words came out. The judge nodded and turned to the court officer. "Secure the courtroom. All media is to remain outside. Mr. Donovan is not to leave this building." The courtroom was locked down. Ray tried to collect himself. "This is some kind of mistake," he muttered. "She's bluffing. This is political." But deep down, he knew it wasn't. Aisha handed a series of sealed envelopes to the judge and began to speak, her voice calm but firm. "For the past 6 months, I've been conducting an investigation into patterns of racial profiling, excessive force, and falsification of police reports, tied to a small group of officers in this department. Detective Ray Donovan's name appears in at least 17 separate complaints, many of them buried or dismissed." Ray looked around the room, hoping for support, but the officers who once backed him now avoided his eyes. Aisha continued. "We have recovered body cam footage, internal emails, and recorded conversations, some of which show direct violations of departmental policy and federal law. In one case, a teenager was hospitalized after a stop that was never officially documented. In another, a witness was paid to stay silent." Gasps rose from the gallery. Ray stood up suddenly, anger rising in his chest. "You can't do this. You don't have the authority." Aisha didn't flinch. She looked directly at him and spoke clearly. "I have every legal authority. And now, so does the court." The judge banged his gavel once. "Detective Donovan, you are now under official inquiry. Sit down, or you will be detained immediately." Ray sat. He was used to being in control, used to intimidating others, twisting words and walking away untouched. But not this time. This time, someone stood up to him, and not just anyone. Someone who knew the law better than he ever did. Someone who had been watching him, quietly collecting every piece of truth he tried to bury. In that moment, Ray realized the courtroom he once ruled with arrogance was now the very place he would answer for everything he had done, and the woman he had mocked. She wasn't just a bystander. She was the storm he never saw coming. The courtroom was never the same after that day. News of what happened spread like wildfire. Headlines across the city screamed, "Police officer under fire in courtroom ambush." But it wasn't an ambush. It was justice, waiting for the right moment. Detective Ray Donovan's arrest shook the department. For years, he had been seen as untouchable. He trained younger officers, won awards, gave interviews. But now, his past was catching up with him, fast. As the formal trial began, Aisha Carter took center stage. Calm, professional, and focused, she led the prosecution with laser-sharp precision. She didn't speak with rage. She didn't attack with emotion. She presented the facts, one after another, until the courtroom couldn't look away. She began by laying out a timeline, years of misconduct buried under red tape. Then she brought out evidence, hard, undeniable proof. Body cam footage that was accidentally erased but recovered from cloud storage. Victims' statements. Internal messages between officers laughing about false charges. It all came out. Ray's face turned pale as video clips played on a large screen for the jury. In one, he's seen slamming a black teenager onto the hood of a car, shouting, "You people never learn." The courtroom went silent. In another clip, he threatens a woman who had recorded his actions, telling her she could disappear if she didn't delete it. There was no spinning it, no clever excuses. But what hit hardest were the people. One by one, victims came forward to testify. A father who was falsely arrested in front of his daughter. A student who lost his scholarship because of a charge Ray fabricated. An elderly woman whose home was raided without a warrant. Their voices were shaky, but their stories were powerful. Aisha stood beside them, guiding each one gently, allowing their truths to shine. She never made it about herself. She made it about them, the ones who never got their day in court until now. Ray's defense team tried everything. They painted him as a tough cop, doing a dangerous job. They claimed Aisha was making it personal. But their efforts fell flat. In her final argument to the court, Aisha said quietly, "This case is not about revenge. It's not about anger. It's about truth, and truth doesn't need to shout. It simply stands firm and waits to be seen." The jury watched her closely. They saw a woman who didn't seek the spotlight, but earned it. A woman who fought not with fists, but with facts. And in her silence, she carried the pain of many. This wasn't just a trial anymore. It was a reckoning. And Ray, once the powerful one in the room, now looked small, like a man who realized he'd been standing on borrowed ground for far too long. The trial had lasted 7 days. Each one chipped away at the illusion Ray Donovan had built over the years. With every new witness, every piece of evidence, the truth became harder to ignore. On the final day, the courtroom was packed again. But this time, it felt different. The tension wasn't about fear, it was about justice finally catching up. Ray sat beside his lawyers, silent. Gone was the confident smirk. Gone was the swagger. He looked like a man who knew what was coming, but still hoped for a miracle. Aisha stood to deliver her closing argument. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't point fingers. She simply looked at the jury and spoke from the heart. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, "this courtroom is not just a place of law. It's a place of memory. And for too long, people like Detective Donovan have relied on others forgetting their actions, their words, their abuse of power. But today, we remember." She paused, letting the silence speak louder than any shout could. This case is not about one bad day or one bad decision. It's about a pattern, a system where certain people believed they were above the law because no one dared to challenge them. That ends here. The jury went into deliberation. It didn't take long. When they returned, the judge asked for the verdict. The foreperson stood and read it clearly. We, the jury, find the defendant Raymond Donovan guilty on all counts. The room exhaled. Some people cried. Others sat in stunned silence. Ray didn't move. The judge wasted no time. Detective Donovan, you are hereby sentenced to 5 years in federal prison. You will be stripped of your badge, your pension, and your authority. Court officers approached him. As they placed handcuffs around his wrists, Ray looked up. For the first time, his eyes met Aisha's. There was no hatred there, only disbelief. He opened his mouth slightly, as if to say something, but nothing came out. Aisha didn't gloat. She didn't smile. She simply watched. Calm. Unshaken. This wasn't a victory for her. It was a long overdue correction. Ray was led out of the courtroom in silence, past the same people he had once insulted, ignored, and harmed. And Aisha? She quietly gathered her notes, thanked the judge, and walked out with the same grace she had walked in with. But now, everyone in the room saw her differently. She wasn't just a lawyer. She was justice, with a voice. Outside the courthouse, a small crowd had gathered. Reporters held out microphones, cameras clicked, and people waited. Some in silence, others whispering to each other. Everyone wanted to hear what Aisha Carter would say. But Aisha didn't stop for the cameras. She didn't hold a press conference. She didn't bask in attention. She simply stepped outside, pulled out her phone, and dialed one number. Her mother answered. "It's done," Aisha said softly. "He's going to prison." There was a pause on the other end. Then a quiet, proud voice replied, "I knew you'd do it." Aisha smiled. Not because she had won, but because justice, real justice, had finally stood its ground. Later that week, she was seen in a completely different place. Not in a courtroom, not in an interview, but sitting on the floor of a small community center. Around her were young girls, black, brown, and white, listening as she told stories, not about the law, but about courage. One of the girls raised her hand and asked, "Miss Aisha, weren't you scared going up against a police officer?" Aisha looked at her gently and said, "Yes. But being scared doesn't mean you're not strong. It means you care enough to stand anyway." That's who Aisha was. She didn't fight battles with anger. She didn't shout to be heard. She moved with quiet purpose, trusted the truth, and let her actions speak for her. The same courtroom where she was mocked became the place where her silence turned into strength. The same officer who tried to humiliate her now sat behind bars because she refused to let arrogance win. And the system that once failed her brother had, for once, done something right. Power doesn't always wear a badge. Sometimes it walks in quietly, demands nothing, and still changes everything. Have you ever seen someone underestimated, only to rise beyond all expectations? Tell us your story in the comments. Your voice matters more than you know.